All right, we want to formally introduce you to our newest jig head that we came out with this season called the HeavySetter. So if you can see these laid out right here, this HeavySetter is our newest jig head. So basically as it goes in our lineup, standard 90, HeavySetter, our 860 heavy wire, and our Gravedigger. So as you can see, as you progress up the ladder there, the hooks basically get longer. So what we've run into, and we've had a lot of requests for the last several years, is a jig head that doesn't have such a big hook, but has a little bit more weight to it. So that's where the HeavySetter comes from. And there's two different things that we designed this jig head to do. The first thing is it's kind of an extension of our standard 90. It has one size bigger hook, so it's just a hair bigger hook than our standard 90. So what that's going to do for you is give you some heavier options for fishing like your standard size tubes, especially a 3 or 4 inch tube. Now you've got a head that'll fit those in a standard fit configuration that goes all the way up to 1.5 ounces. So a lot of us like to fish for pup lake trout, and sometimes in a lot of fisheries we're going to be fishing 60, 80, 100 feet deep. So we really like to have a head that's going to get a standard tube size all the way down to 100 feet and give us the feel that we need fishing that deep. So that's the first thing you can use the HeavySetter for, is just standard fit on your standard tubes, but gives you a lot more weight. Now the second thing that we designed this tube head to be used for is actually like bigger tubes. So we're going to show you how to rig those, because the rigging's a little bit different than like a standard fit. And the reason we came up with a heavy head like this with such a small hook is you do need a little more weight to be able to sink a big piece of plastic like that. So it does physically need to be heavier. But the reason we came out with this with such a short hook compared to like our Gravedigger, which has a long hook, the reason for that is you'll get into scenarios or different fisheries where, especially lake trout and pike, they like to eat the bait head first. So sometimes if you have like a standard size tube jig like this, where the hook's basically right in the center of the tube, when a fish comes in and grabs that thing head first, it misses the hook. The typical bite with a tube jig is what we call a T-bone. So that's where we came up with like the center hook to the mass of the jig. When they T-bone it, you hook them. Well, sometimes fish don't play by the rules and they want to bite it on the head. So we came up with something really short. So now that hook gets positioned much closer to the head. So when they grab it by the head, you hook them. Same scenario goes even with this big 6.5 or 7 inch tubes. We put this head inside of there. Now when that fish comes in and grabs that thing on the head, you're going to hook them. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you how we rig these little tube heads in a bigger size tube. So with like a 5 inch tube like this Carl's, we can just rig it pretty much the same to start with. So we're going to start this tube jig head right up the hollow body from the back. We're going to slide it all the way up until the hook wants to stop, where the tentacles start. And from there, you can do two things. You can either open up a slit on the back of the tube here and just let that hook keep riding along straight, or you can actually bury the whole hook inside of the hollow body. And so now I'm pushing the head of it and the hook of it inside the tube body. What we want to do is end up with this, the weight of the jig head as far forward towards the front of the tube as we can get it. That's going to make this thing balance nice and square when we're fishing vertical especially. So I've got that lead worked all the way up to the nose. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the plastic up like that, and then I'm going to feel that hook point, and we're just going to poke that hook point right out. And the cool thing on these Carls is that little fin on the back sometimes actually hides that profile of that hook. So if you're around fish that are real finicky or shy about high profile hooks, that actually kind of disguises it naturally with this particular tube. And then from there, you just work the line tie up through the plastic like that, tie it up, and you're good to go. So that's kind of what a 5-inch tube looks like with the HeavySetter rigged inside. So now with these bigger ones, it's almost easier because the diameter on these big tubes is so much bigger. We're almost just gonna open that up, and we're just gonna basically drop that whole jig head inside the body of that tube. And it's the whole thing's literally hidden inside of there right now. So I'm going to make sure that lead is all the way up at the front. I'm going to get that tube, and you kind of want it at a 90-degree angle when you find the point. So when you pull it, it makes everything nice and straight. So from there, you work the line tie back out the head. So where that pokes out there, you tie it up. One trick that we've done too, like see how that kind of hook is exposed out the side of the body? With this, you can actually push it back down, and you can actually kind of poke the hook point just barely into the skin of that tube like that, and then it leaves like a really natural profile. When a fish bites that, it immediately pops that hook out like this. So you still get a really good hook set, but that's a good way to almost hide the hook to where you're just getting a nice clean tube body without any hooks sticking out anywhere. So if you're around fish that seem to be wary with different looking stuff, that's a good way to rig it right there too. We've been selling a lot of these jig heads already. Everybody's kind of picked up on it, but we finally wanted to formally introduce you to our HeavySetter and show you a couple ways how we use that, especially in scenarios when we get around fish that really like to bite head first.